Now that we've introduced the different phases of matter, right, solids, liquids, and gases, let me tell you a little bit about how all these things are related to each other in this phase diagram. Okay, so the phase diagram relates sort of when we find what, okay, under what conditions do things tend to be liquids or solids or gases. And when I say conditions, I mean temperature and pressure. So let me show you graphically what a phase diagram looks like. Okay. Phase diagram typically has as the y-axis pressure and as the x-axis temperature. And you can see that a lot of this kind of makes sense. Okay? When the temperature is pretty high and the pressure is pretty low, that is best condition to have a gas present. Right? High temperatures and low pressures. On the other side, if I have relatively low temperatures and relatively high pressures, those are the best conditions for a solid. And intermediate temperatures and pressures over here is where I tend to find liquids. Okay? And so each of these areas in the phase diagram represents each of the three different phases. Now, each of the boundaries here represents where I can have a transition from one phase to another. In other words, everywhere along this boundary, I can change between solid, which is on the left side, and gas, which is on the right side. So if I go straight from solid to gas without ever crossing liquid, this is called sublimation. But if I go in the opposite direction and go from gas directly to solid, this is called deposition. Okay, similarly, if I go along this line here, this represents the boundary between solid and liquid. So if I go from solid to liquid, from left to right, that's melting. And if I go from liquid to solid, right to left, that's freezing. And lastly, if I go on this line here, this represents the transition between liquid and gas. So going from liquid to gas is called vaporization. Going from gas to liquid is the opposite of that. That's condensation.